My name is Vince Carter, and welcome to the VC3 podcast. This video does not reflect my personal political views, nor does it advocate for or against any political party, ideology, or individual office holder in the US. I am not offering my opinions or moral judgments. Every claim, classification, analytical framework used in this video is drawn from independent reporting by journalists, peer-reviewed scholarship by historians and political scientists, and analysis by legal experts. All sources are cited on screen and are linked in the description below. This analysis does not assess President Trump's character or intentions as President of the United States. It does not allege malice, ill will, or unlawful intent. The conclusions presented reflect the cumulative assessment of observable actions and institutional outcomes as evaluated through established academic definitions, not merely personal opinion.
Before we can define fascism, we need to zoom out and look at the broader political spectrum, the different types of government that exist and how they relate to one another. At the center of our political spectrum is liberal democracy, the system all democracies aim for, and the way the United States is often idealized to the world and to its citizens. These countries have competitive elections, strong and fair rule of law, protect civil liberties, have healthy checks and balances that limit government power, and give power to the people and protect their freedoms. Authority is constrained, and the system is neither strongly authoritarian on the left nor authoritarian on the right. As countries drift away from this center, both on the left and the right, authoritarianism increases, meaning repression, corruption, and violence against political opposition and dissent decreases, often slowly at first, and then more rapidly and severely the further you get. Just outside liberal democracy is populism. These systems are formally democratic, but executive overreach becomes more common and often violates established laws, norms, and democratic customs. Attacks on the media and independent institutions start to feel normal rather than shocking. Elections still exist and are technically free, but there is a growing government pressure, intimidation, or manipulation designed to influence outcomes. Imagine playing a football game where the rules haven't changed, but everything around the game is stacked against you. Your team is kept awake all night because the hotel lights are never turned off. The bus to the stadium has no seats. Fans throw trash at you when you enter the field. Your sideline has no water, and during the game, lights and the sound system are used to disrupt your plays. The game is technically free and fair, but every non rule method is used to punish you and push you towards losing. Further outside of populism is illiberal democracy. Illiberal countries, elections still occur, but they're so heavily tilted toward the ruling party that they are no longer fair. Power is increasingly concentrated in the executive branch, and executive overreach becomes routine. Checks and balances are weak or ineffective. The ruling party uses state power to rewrite election laws, dominate major media outlets, and change the legal structures to lock in power beyond a single term. Think of it like a football game where the rules are technically still apply, but the other team gets to play with all 11 players while your team is forced to play with 8. The field is the same. The clock is still running. In theory, you could still win, but the game is clearly stacked against you, and over time, the outcome becomes predictable. Even more extreme are authoritarian systems or full authoritarian systems where elections still happen but are no longer meaningful. Outcomes are effectively decided in advance. These states are led by strong men who have concentrated most of all, if not all, political power in their hands. The ruling party dominates government institutions, opposition is heavily repressed, and the media is largely controlled. Society experiences significant to strict control by the government. However, these systems may stop short of full totalitarianism, such as Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler or the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin. In football terms, this is a game where you're technically allowed to take the field, but the outcome is already set. The other team controls the referees. Your playbook has to be pre approved in advance. Star players are disqualified before kickoff. And if you score too many points, the rules suddenly change. You're allowed to play, but only so long as you don't actually threaten to win. Fascist and communist systems represent the most extreme end of the authoritarian spectrum. They're typically single party dictatorships characterized by ultranationalism, a state directed cult of leadership, and a fusion of political power with a dominant ideology. These systems are highly militarized, both in foreign affairs and domestic governance, often relying on paramilitary or military forces to suppress political opposition, minority groups, independent institutions, and perceived internal enemies. Political pluralism is eliminated, dissent is criminalized, and loyalty to the leader or the ruling party replaces loyalty to the law or the constitutional order. In the football analogy, your entire team is executed in the locker room before the game starts. Not for breaking the rules, but for just existing. The opposing team wins by default every single time. Next, we'll look at how modern nations fit onto this. Finland represents the strongest liberal democracy as rated by Freedom House, gaining the only perfect score and obviously rated as free. Next, we have Israel and Brazil, which fall into the populist category where democratic norms and rights are beginning to erode, but these countries are still rated as free. Countries where political and civil liberties are significantly weakened, such as Hungary, Mexico, and India, are downgraded to this brown border and are rated as partially free. Some of the most oppressive and violent nations, Russia, China, and Venezuela, fall under single party or fully authoritarian rule and are downgraded to a purple border and are rated not free. Finally, at the far end of the spectrum, are what we can only be described as hell on earth regimes, are countries like North Korea and Russian occupied territories of Ukraine. Obviously, freedom of any type does not exist in these countries, and these people experience the most extreme levels of violence and oppression on the earth. These placements are approximate. The goal is to orient you with the political spectrum. And now that you have an idea of the bigger picture, let's jump into the definition of fascism. According to the Webster Dictionary, fascism is defined as a populist, political philosophy, movement, or regime that exalts the nation and often race above the individual, that is associated with a centralized autocratic government headed by a dictatorial leader that is characterized by severe economic and social regimentation and by forcible suppression of the opposition. Within that definition, there are 5 core elements. The remaining 2 come from widely accepted scholarship on fascism and authoritarianism, drawn from the experts whose books are shown on screen. Together, this framework identifies 7 key elements of fascism. Number 1, populism and anti democratic foundations. Number 2, nationalist and often racist ideology. Number 3, centralized and unchecked power or autocratic power. Number 4, law and order used as a tool of political control. Number 5, strict control over society. Number 6, suppression and violence against opposition. And number 7, cult of the leader and the state. Using Webster's dictionary alongside insights from scholars of fascism, we can break down each of these 7 elements into more specific observable subsections, and we can score them individually.
On screen is a chart titled Indications and Warnings of Fascism. This chart shows each subsection for each element of fascism. During the course of this video, I'll often interchangeably call these subsections elements of fascism as well, because they are, but they are just subsections that make up each element. I apologize if that gets confusing later on. I explained a full breakdown of how this model works and how it scores these subsections in episode 1, so please refer to episode 1 for the full breakdown. Just a reminder, this series is built to be watched in order. If you don't, you'll miss out on all the important information. But if you didn't watch episode 1, here's a very quick and incomplete explanation.
Each subsection is evaluated on a 4-level scale. At the lowest is a triangle. This means there's no indications. We aren't seeing this element of fascism in America. Next is an empty circle. This is emerging. This element of fascism is beginning to emerge by rhetoric or normalization without the government action. Next is partially observed, our half circle. This element of fascism is encouraged, tolerated, or selectively enforced by the government. Finally is our full circle, fully observed. This element of fascism has been formally sanctioned through laws, executive orders, regulations, or official government policy. That's important, those distinctions. Additionally, subsections in red are identified as critical elements of fascism, meaning they'll be worth double the points that a government cannot be considered fascist without every critical element being fully observed. This framework allows us to measure authoritarian drift and risk trajectory rather than make a binary or sensational claim. I know that was a long list of prerequisites, but now we can finally move on to the core of this video, the important analysis. We'll go through each category one by one, explain what it means, give a historical example, and then examine the Trump administration's actions within this section and assign it a grade. At the end, we'll tally all of the scores up, assign the US a fascist index score, and then use that score to determine how far the US has drifted, if at all, towards fascism.
Next time on Dragon Ball Z.